We have an Amiibo problem. Amiibo have always been really expensive and in short supply, and the secondhand market has really never helped with this. Me Gunner, for example, would cost you about $100 if it was shipped domestically up until about 2021 when the Amiibo market crashed. Everyone who's collected Amiibo knows how expensive they've always been, but they didn't know that Amiibo expensiveness has played a big role in the Amiibo meta. So why do Amiibo prices matter? Well, Amiibo availability is actually what plays the big role. Me Gunner is the obvious example of this. She was one of the only early top tiers that could have countered Bowser until Hero's release much later. And if you didn't have Me Gunner, your only hope of consistently beating Bowser was Mac, who really only went 50-50 against him. This is Amiibo's problem with Amiibo. If more people had them and sent them to tournaments, we would have labbed out Me Gunner much earlier and realized that she could stop Bowser. There could have been an alternate timeline where Me Gunner was in proper supply, and then Bowser never got banned because we realized Me Gunner and Little Mac could keep him in check. There was no solution to this problem in 2019. These days, the best option for Amiibo availability is just buying much cheaper Amiibo cards or the power saves for Amiibo, but hardly anyone knew that they existed back then. AmiiboDoctor.com was the first website to teach people how to make Amiibo cards, but interest in that didn't kick off until shortly before the 2020 lockdowns. So as a result, some top tiers got more or less representation in the broader Amiibo meta based on how cheap and available their Amiibo figures were, and that representation biased the development of the Amiibo meta. Substitute Amiibo products didn't solve this either. They actually created a second Amiibo problem. Link and Zelda were the most popular Amiibo tournament entrants for years because the Breath of the Wild Amiibo mostly function as Link and Zelda in Smash. And since everyone had Breath of the Wild Amiibo, they figured, hey, let's train it and put them in tournaments. Link and Zelda, as a result, got heavily researched, and you could argue that Link was the first or almost the first Amiibo to have his optimal playstyle figured out. Same thing with Joker. When Joker came out, everyone trained him and put him in tournaments, so he got labbed much heavier than most, and he really hasn't improved much since. Think of this like type effectiveness, alright? When you have grass, which beats water, and then water which beats fire, and then fire which beats grass, and nobody uses water, well, fire does better because there's nothing to beat it. Well, when an Amiibo isn't being trained and sent to tournaments because it's unpopular or expensive, the Amiibo that it counters no longer have that counter weighing them down. This makes it tremendously hard to build an Amiibo tier list without looking at very long-term trends and the Amiibo 20XX potential of every Amiibo. And it's about to happen again. The Alex Amiibo is releasing pretty soon, and she's getting packaged with Steve. At the moment, she's not top tier and probably never will be. But what happens if she ends up countering someone who is? Suppose for a second that the crafters are really popular in tournaments because everyone has two of them by default, and that Alex, crushes Bowser. Well, Bowser's going to be worse off for as long as Alex is disproportionately popular, or I guess Steve. And the various Amiibo that Bowser counters will in turn have an easier time because the crafters are eliminating the Bowsers. The best way to end this is to focus your training efforts on lower tiered and underrepresented Amiibo, because those Amiibo often don't have as much representation as the higher tiers that are either more available or more likely to win.